So why did you actually play it for 6 hours then?
Because I wasn't sure if I was enjoying it or not.
Okay.
I was like, do I like it enough to buy it?
So, Alex, I hear that you played a game that I know absolutely nothing about, and I was hoping you could tell me.
Yeah, I do that occasionally. Played a couple newer games recently.
Ooh, fun.
A game I kind of had an eye on just because there's someone I watch does like first impressions of games,
Sure.
and they're interesting. So I've been seeing a lot of because it gives me a way to see games that I wouldn't normally see just on my own.
Sure.
Whether they're interesting or not, and that's cool. Anyways, that person is Splattercat. So this game, I saw them play, and it sounded interesting, and I was like, maybe I'll check it out if either there's a demo, or if it goes on sale, as I do. But this last weekend, at the point of recording, they had a free weekend.
Perfect. What is this
game? The game that I tried out is called Ripout. It is... Okay. By my approximation, close to like a boomer shooter, but not quite a boomer shooter. It is an action FPS. It's not quite Borderlands because it's not really a looter shooter.
Right.
But it's not quite like the older Doom games, which are boomer shooters.
Right. Would it be... I haven't played this, but it sounds a little bit like maybe Forgive Me Father. That kind of...
I don't know anything about that. I would say it's closer to like Doom, okay. But different. It's different. So sure. I only played the game for maybe like 6 or 7 hours, I think, before the weekend was over. I was playing other things too. But I found myself wondering the whole time and like asking Brave after. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this game.
Was it because of it being a shooter, or was it because of how it was playing? Okay.
Because of how it's playing. I can enjoy a shooter. I have a shit ton of hours now into like Tom Clancy's Division 2, for instance.
Sure, sure.
So the premise of the game is you're like I don't know, super soldier type motherfucker. A mutant, I think is what they call you.
Perfect.
You have this gun that you get that is a pet gun, as it's called. It is like it's a gun that is alive. Has these looks like the tongue from Alien that comes out and has the teeth.
Yeah.
Tiny the alien. Underbarrel kind of looks like that, and you get it and you just kind of scratch its chin, whatever. But you can essentially you go around and the gun can take different forms. Either it can be at the time I was playing, I could have is either an assault rifle, a shotgun, or I could get like a sniper with it. You've got a pistol as a sidearm, which is not a pet, but your pet gun, you can like tell it to go attack. You hit a button and it launches at an enemy and will attack them, like bite the shit out of them, and then come back. It will also, there are other smaller enemies that it'll go and it can attack and then attach them to you. You're a mutant, you can like take these smaller enemies and graft them onto yourself for a short time. These enemies are either like guns or shields, or they can give you different abilities as well. Kind of like a biomorph, you were saying.
Oh, yeah, okay. Like
so one of the little enemies I can get is like a claw that'll give me a close combat attack.
Sure.
One of the ones is a gun. One's like a stasis thing. One's a shield. One can do healing for me or teammates because it is a co-op game as well. So that part of the game is really cool. You can also get these are run-based gameplay, mission-based runs.
Oh, okay.
That aren't super long. It's kind of go in, do the mission, then get out.
Sure.
Not quite an extraction shooter.
Okay.
But you go in, you kill enemies, you do whatever. There are hazards, environmental hazards that are interesting. I guess there's not that many, but there's like electricity or poison or stuff you can come across in these space stations, because yes, it is set in space, obviously. Why would it not be?
Yeah.
But you gather all the materials so you can get upgrades, and then there are like per run based upgrades you can get. You find these nodes that give you different like upgrades. You select one of three. Maybe it gives you more health, or increases your damage, or your crit rate, or The one that I was doing is when you have your pet attack, it will, bring back ammo for you. I'm like, anytime I see that, I get it, because then I can just dump clips of the assault rifle into things and send my pet out to get me more ammo.
Sure.
So these aspects of the game are really cool. I enjoyed those. There's a crafting system in it that is... There's like 4 different crafting components you can get, but from the time I played with it, you only really need 2. One's like a cash currency and one's like an ingot. And the other, like, 3 of them you can use to convert into the ingots.
Oh, okay.
Which is a little weird to me. It's like, alright, well, this is 20 of these to one of those, or this one is 10 to one of those, and this one's 5 to one of those. That didn't bother me, it was just kind of weird. Through the missions, you can gain blueprints for different pieces of armor, or different weapons and upgrades, and that's all fine. But the thing I was having a harder time with was, did I enjoy it? Now, I don't generally spend more than a couple hours playing a game if I don't like it, and I put like 6 in, which I know is not a lot of hours, but it is a lot if you're not sure if you like a game, I think.
Right.
While aspects of the game were interesting or kind of cool, like the ones I've talked about, the gameplay itself was kind of weird. The story wasn't very compelling to me. The AI companion, your computer system, whatever that talked, was kind of annoying. For instance, it was like, go do this. And then if you didn't do it within 30 seconds, it would be like, go do this. And it would repeat that until you did it. And I'm like, that's not necessary.
No.
Just leave it as an objective.
Yeah.
The ship you're on is, like, you can turn a shower on, whatever, for no reason. There's kind of little aesthetic things. They're like, oh, you can interact with that, but it doesn't do anything, so there's no point. The gameplay was weird, because it's a shooter, and the shooting and everything feels fine, and the enemies are fine, but there didn't seem to be a large variety from the several hours I put in. Maybe 4 or 5 different enemies that I came across. The issue I was having is that you simultaneously felt powerful and incredibly weak, I think.
Okay.
So I didn't have an issue killing enemies. Generally speaking, it was kind of just, they'd come at you and either you kill them really fast, or they come at you and they're bigger enemies and they take longer to kill, but you kind of just back up and keep firing until they're dead. So enemies felt like they weren't really tough.
Got it.
Okay, so I felt a little overpowered there, but at the same time, you felt incredibly frail. Because an enemy would come up behind you and just, like, 2-shot you.
So everybody's a glass cannon in this, basically.
Yeah, and I didn't like that. The levels also felt kind of sparse. The enemy density was very low for most of the time, and occasionally it would be like, oh, here's like a wave of enemies. Here's like 3 or 4 or 5 of the dog-looking motherfuckers, little quadrupeds, and then like 2 of the big guys. It's like, okay, well, that's a little bit more intense, which was more fun, because it's like, all right, gotta prioritize and keep moving. But it felt safer to me to keep the enemies at range and just pick them off. And that is weird for an FPS, because a lot of times you should be in the action. You should feel like you need to be in the action because it's less effective to be out of it. And I know sniper rifles are great at long range, but this is like internal corridors on a ship.
Oh, okay.
And that's medium to close range combat. So when you feel like the best option is to stay at range and just kind of pick guys off, that's I don't think a good sign. Because getting up close meant that more often than not, I would just die.
That's not optimal for shooters, is dying.
No. And it wasn't like... Yeah, no, it's not. And it wasn't like I didn't have hit points and couldn't... Like, it's not like I could get in there and just tank some damage, because you couldn't. 1 or 2 hits from these guys would just kill you.
Right. Okay.
So it becomes, alright, well, the optimal strategy is to stay away from them
Mm-hmm.
Because these big fuckers are just gonna smack me and murder me.
Sure.
And so it's like, that's weird. And with the fact that the enemy density was really low for most of the time, it was also weird because I didn't really play the latest Doom game, but that one did a really good job about making sure you were always moving in the combat, because the only way to regen your health, for instance, were the glory kills.
Right.
So this one felt a lot more subdued in I think.
It has more of an aversion to going in and attacking.
Yeah.
Because you get killed off so fast.
Yeah, like one of the times too, and I was playing this with Kraylov next to me, and I'm doing it, and it's got different levels that you can go to. Like, I'm on the second floor in the first one, so it's not that far down, but I jump off the, like, jump from one level to the other and hit the floor, and I just die.
Perfect.
And I started laughing and go, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, did I just die from the fall?
Yeah. Fall damage.
I was like, what the fuck?
Perfect.
And then the other thing, too, is it can be played co-op, and at this point I'm thinking, why, if the enemy density is not heavy enough to make it so co-op would be either a boon or necessary, then why? But you can, like, self-resurrect yourself once if you get killed, and then you can go get another resurrection token later if you want it, if you find a machine for it, which is fine. I don't mind it. That's actually kind of a cool concept, because if it's a team game and you're not playing with a team, then yeah, being able to self-res and not just fail a mission is nice, you know. But the problem is, if you die, the enemies just kind of hover around your corpse.
They're just waiting for you to resurrect?
Yeah, they just kind of wait there.
Perfect.
And so I would find myself going, alright, well, I'll just wait a few seconds and see if they kind of wander off. As most things in a game with the aggro leashes, for instance, if you die, the enemies go, cool, they're dead, I'm going back to where I was.
Sure.
Not so much. The enemies would stick around.
Yeah.
And I'm like, alright, well, that's not ideal, because I just died to them, and if I come back right now, they're, like, on top of my body. And they're going to, like, beat me to death.
Perfect.
So, I don't know. I had a mixed feeling through the game. I was like, it's enjoyable when it's enjoyable, but it's incredibly frustrating because it doesn't feel good. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It doesn't feel satisfying when you're playing it. Like,
I guess.
Yeah. I think that the frailty issue is something that the older shooters have a bit of a problem with, because they usually just have the life bar, and it's not really like a regenerating life bar. Does this technically have like a life bar, or is it just
you got hit points?
Okay. It's one of those things that when like the revolution with like Halo came around, they tried to mitigate that by having a regenerating shield, but then hit points that are, you know, because they figured that this is going to give you pause. Of course, in those games, it then encouraged you to take cover so that you could regenerate your shields.
Right.
And since Doom wasn't going to do that, that's when the newer ones came in with the idea of, well, what about if we encourage people to use the melee? And so then you can go up and do that. It sounds like what they decided to do for Ripout was do neither of those things. And make it so that you don't really get rewarded for trying to hide, but you don't get rewarded for going into battle and trying to, you know, get up close and personal. So you have very little reward. What is the optimal strategy supposed to be for Ripout? That's the thing I'm trying to think.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because yes, there are a bunch of the little mods you can get. There are a bunch of the little guys you could get to attach you for, like, extra guns or, like, the healing stuff. I'm not quite sure, though, because, again, the enemy density wasn't high enough for me to say that playing this would be optimal with more players. But I tried, like, the shotgun, for instance, and found that I was getting too close to enemies.
Sure.
And while, yes, the shotgun would absolutely murder things because of the incredibly high damage with it,
sure,
it meant that I was getting enemies too close and not being able to fire fast enough when multiple of them would be near me. So the optimal, I think, was just the assault rifle mag dumping. Words.
Yeah, that thing.
And like you could upgrade your armor and get different kinds that would kind of alter your stuff. You also can get different melee weapons. I have a katana. But like, again, getting up close and personal.
Yeah, how do you do that if you're gonna die technically? Yeah.
So, my thoughts on it were that I think your character needs to be tougher. They need to be able to take more hits. But I also think that the enemies need to be increased. You need to have more of them, but have them do a bit less damage.
Right.
Because then instead of just being like, oh yeah, dead, it is a tick, 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 and then you're dead.
Give me a few moments.
Yeah, so it's like you can be more overwhelmed, and then it's more intensity to it, but you're not feeling like that intensity is overwhelmingly unfair.
So why did you actually play it for 6 hours then?
Because I wasn't sure if I was enjoying it or not.
Okay.
I was like, do I like it enough to buy it?
Yeah.
Or do I not want to buy it? And currently, I would probably say I wouldn't buy it because, again, through those 6 hours, and I played multiple missions and got a bunch of different upgrades and tried different things, I found myself just questioning whether I was really enjoying it or not. Did I want to play more or did I not? I went back to play it more to figure that out.
Okay,
but if I have to play the game more to figure out if I like playing the game, I probably don't like it enough to play it.
Right. Yeah. No, this is this is the problem that, I occasionally experience where it's like I want to like a game, but it feels like I'm spending far more time trying to figure out if I do like the game than actually enjoying the game in the first place.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they've got into that.
Yeah. And you know me, I'm not huge on analyzing games.
Sure.
Like, not in that aspect. I don't typically go into a game and question everything. I might question decisions mechanically, I guess, yes. I might have ideas about it, but I don't go in and go, do I like this game?
Right.
I'm not into overanalyzing things. But in this case, I was sitting there questioning
what's
if
wrong
I did.
Here? Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Why? Yeah.
It was like, there are games that I will play, and I will just go, nah, not feeling it, don't really care for it, and I'll just not. Usually those are games I play for less than 2 hours and refund.
Sure. Sure.
I can tell pretty quick if a game does not vibe with me. And in this case, I was like, there's enough going on that I do like to keep trying it, but not enough to keep me wanting to continue.
Sure, yeah. I've experienced that. One that I kind of get reminded of that is also a shooter, but it's a very different kind, is one that I tried out because I thought that it might be the kind of thing that I liked, which was called Metal Hellsinger. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I've seen it, and I don't remember which one it is right now.
You're a demon that is trying to destroy other demons, and it is a rhythm-based first-person shooter.
Yes.
And so the cool thing about it is that you've got like these metal tracks, and the metal tracks have beats. And so the idea is that you're firing along to the beats to get your hits as you're going along while you're doing this like frenetic, point A to point B level sort of thing for which is kind of like an old school idea of how you do shooters, in chapters, until you get to a boss, and then you have to deal with the big boss that has a big health bar while you're trying to shoot along with the time frame and do that. I thought it was going to be really interesting, and so I did play like a couple levels of it, and it's one of those things where when it works really nicely. But I think I've determined that it's one of those cases where it was more enjoyable to watch people play it correctly than it was for me to play it itself. Because what happens is when you get offbeat, in similar fashion to like maybe, like an SSX or something, when you fumble or something, the music fades back out and like comes back in, and so the tracks, when you're doing it correctly and you're hitting those beats as you're firing along, and you're doing the special maneuvers and you're coming up and you're doing finishing moves on the beats and stuff, and that metal music's coming in, and it's coming in much more intensely there, it feels synergetic. You're really like doing this big metal set piece of demons in hell to metal music, and you're playing along on the beat with the rhythm and everything, and that's really great. The second you fumble that, though, it just feels wrong and bad, and I did not enjoy it. And then I started to realize, this is going to be the rest of my levels, so...
Didn't you enjoy Hi-Fi Rush?
I did like Hi-Fi Rush, but the difference with Hi-Fi Rush is that is a melee game, and it does not... And the other thing, too, you can do combinations and stuff on the beats and everything like that. But the other thing that's important about Hi-Fi Rush is that if you hit on the beats, you get additional damage, but you always attack on the beats with Hi-Fi Rush. Even if you hit early, your attacks still land on the beats. So it continually encourages you that you're not going to get faster, or you're not going to do it earlier. It's just that you're not going to do as much damage. You're still going to attack on the beats regardless of whether you hit it early or not.
Okay.
Hellsinger's different, because if you don't hit on the beats, you're just like, what happened? It's like, oh no, I've lost my combos and everything like that, and
So I guess it's like the difference between like when you play DDR and you get perfects versus when you kind of get a couple right and then get something wrong and it messes your whole streak up.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more like that.
Okay. I'm not a huge rhythm game person myself, despite the years in chorus I spent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, Dark Souls is technically a rhythm game, and I'm not a fan. It's too much paying attention to things that I don't find fun in the game for me.
Sure, the idea was really neat, and I did appreciate it, and I'm sure for people that are more skilled with it, it's got to be nirvana when you actually get to that place where you're just completely, vibing with the game, and you're moving through it where it feels really like cohesive. But I can't do that, and so it felt like I had two left feet in a mosh pit, and I couldn't make it work. So that's the problem.
I feel like someone, if they have not, needs to play this with like a drum set.
Maybe. Yeah.
Something like a Guitar Hero controller or something like that.
Maybe.
It's metal, so I assume the drums are heavy, and I assume that the riffs are great.
Yeah.
But I would think that a game like this would be really cool to have someone that's playing it with a music instrument, so they could I learned the track to this song that is playing.
Right.
So now it's gonna go, and I'm gonna get the beats.
I mean,
the beats.
You're still doing the first-person shooter thing too, so that's where it gets confusing for the Metal Hellsinger. So I'm still aiming and firing and going and running around the map while I'm doing the rhythm-based gameplay. For the most part, I mean, they tried to streamline it so it made sense. Kudos to them, but I think maybe it's just like in first-person shooters, especially frenetic ones like this, where you get into an arena and there's just a bunch of dudes coming at you, which is very similar to like the arenas in the newer Doom. I've got like a bunch of stuff to think about anyway, and what they want you to do in Metal Hellsinger is to hit all of those on the beats, and then also essentially so that you can do finishing moves, and so your finishing moves will replenish like your health and your everything like that. So you have to be doing that at the same time, and I think it's just too many things to concentrate on for me.
That's the issue I have with games. Too much concentration.
It's too much concentration that I have to go into, and when you stumble for a moment, it becomes a problem. I didn't experience that with Hi-Fi Rush because like the track's going on continuously, and it's more and the game still keeps you going on beats even if you're not hitting on them. It's just that you are then encouraged to get your criticals essentially by hitting on the beats, so that you keep getting those, and so it works out better. And I think the melee combat, since I'm not worried about the aiming and the shooting and the pulling and triggers and stuff, when I'm just trying to hit with light and hard and heavy attacks and everything, and the beats going on the bottom, it's easier for me to follow along with it and concentrate on it.
That's fair.
Yeah. No, Hi-Fi Rush is great, though. So I do appreciate that. But since we're talking about, like, shooters and, like, old-school shooters, I think that's an example I would give of something that doesn't really feel as good as it should, but it was definitely one I wanted to figure out why I'm not having fun with it, and it was because I had seen people play it, and when I would watch people play it correctly, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, but if you can't play at that level, it doesn't necessarily feel awesome.
It does not. It does not. And I had very little interest in getting awesome at it, so I did not do that.
If you played either Hi-Fi Rush,
if you've played Hi-Fi Rush,
Hellsinger, or if you've played Ripout, let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. If you liked it, that's fine. It wasn't for me necessarily, but if they were to up the toughness and the enemy density, I probably would enjoy it a bit more.
Yeah.
I want to know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know if you played.
Yeah. Also, let us know if there's any, like, old school shooters, like retro shooters, that you actually enjoyed, because there's been a resurgence of those lately. Anyway, let us know. Comments down below.